Greetings, friends and fellow freelancers, and welcome back to another episode of Tabletop Mercenary. This week, I want to discuss the approach that a lot of us take when we are looking for freelance work, or when we're looking for something a little more permanent. I've mentioned several times in the past that early on in my career, where I went to find work as a writer for RPGs was I went to conventions, whether I was at WindyCon or Capricon up here in Chicago, or if I was at Gen Con down in Indianapolis. These are some of the best places to go to find people who are active in the industry, who may have need of your talents, and who have the ability to give you work. However, a lot of folks, and I have noticed this recently in a lot of different ways, are going about things in a way that makes a very bad first impression. So I wanted to discuss what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and I wanted to relate some stories about what I've been seeing going on for the past year. Now, what I noticed, and this happened both at the Chicago Steampunk Expo this past year, and it happened at RaptorCon in Southern Indiana, both conventions which I was working with Alice Liddell, or Alice the author. And if you haven't been to her YouTube channel, you should go check that out. But the way things worked is both of these conventions, we had a table in the dealer's room, and we set it up with all of our books, and we were interacting with the public and our fellow booth neighbors, and we were just trying to move copies of our books, letting people know it's like, hey, here's a historical romance novel about vampires. Here's a book about, a noir detective who happens to be a cat. Here's a book about, totally not knockoff space marines solving problems in the dystopian future. And you're getting people on the floor, people are going by, people are stopping in. It's your average day in the dealer's hall at a convention. And throughout both of these days, we had some unusual people come to us, and they always walked up and they always asked the same question, and they looked around our books, then they looked at us and they asked, do we have audio versions of our books? Now, I have a lot of audio stuff I've done on the Azukail Games channel, as I'm sure regular readers know, and Alice also had a lot of audio stuff she'd been doing for her books over on her channel. So both of us do in fact have audio versions of stories we've done. We have a lot of future audio productions we'd like to do, but we kind of need justification from the audience to make them worthwhile. So when someone comes up to us and asks, hey, are there audio versions of your books? We are assuming, given the area that we are and what's going on, that they are customers who are looking to listen rather than physically read books. So we start going into all the productions that we have, all the plans that we have coming out in the future, with a sort of air of telling them, hey, if that's the thing you're interested in, make sure you take a card and follow us so that you don't miss when these things come out. However, at both conventions, there were several individuals who we started noticing were getting distracted, were looking a little disappointed, and it's because they weren't actually interested in listening to versions of our books. What they were hoping was we would say no, so they could then launch into their sales pitch for themselves. Because without fail, all of these individuals were voice actors or hopeful voice actors who were looking to do dramatic readings for various sci-fi and fantasy authors. Now, first of all, if you have a sales pitch like that and it goes poorly, hit the eject button and leave. As soon as you have a polite moment where it turns out that what you were hoping to happen was going the wrong way in this conversation tree, bug out. There's no way to save this. All you're going to do is annoy the people that you have reached out to, and the best thing you can do at this point is to save face. However, what I would recommend is do not use a small talk approach like this when you're doing business. There are times, of course, where this may be appropriate. Perhaps if you're at a cocktail party or if you're at an after party at a convention, people are having drinks, people are sharing casual stories, or maybe you're on a panel and you're talking back and forth with some of your fellow panelists about things you've done or places you've been or things you're hoping to work on. Those are times where small talk is more appropriate. But if you're on the dealer hall floor, if people are doing business, have a business-like approach. Make it clear what you want, what you're offering, and folks will either tell you yes, no, or give us your card and we'll contact you. Those are the only real reactions you're going to get. And I will say, from some experience of mine, that it is very hit or miss what kind of reaction you're going to get. Because when I went to Gen Con and I was handing out business cards and I was talking to people there who were representative of various companies, some folks were deeply annoyed with me Some folks, yeah, they took my card and they called me back later. Other folks said, yes, absolutely. When can you start? And part of the reason for that is Gen Con is massive. So I could just afford to have a shotgun approach to what was going on. I could go up to literally every booth that looked like it was doing something I could have participated in and just shot my shot. If you're at a smaller convention where there's only a handful of people, usually a handful of authors that you might want to work with, you don't have a lot of opportunities. And if one or two of them go down in flames, word might spread before you can get to the rest of them. So don't be subtle with it. If you see people who are doing business, just be upfront with what it is you're hoping to achieve, and you'll get a straight yes, no, or maybe. And once you've had that response, more importantly, you're not going to have people who are frustrated or annoyed that you tried to open what felt like a conversation, which was in fact hiding your sales pitch. What you'll instead say is, oh, that person who reached out to us, they seemed to know what they were doing. Maybe we should call them. If the person you gave your card to does in fact have an opener for the type of work you were looking for, which there won't always be. Now, that's my recommendations for in-person interactions if you're at a convention or if you're at a sales, a signing, something like that. But as a lot of us know, interactions for both private and professional things happen more and more online these days. And I would actually say that this advice goes even harder when you're online, because for folks who don't know about this, authors, publishers, various companies are bombarded with dozens of messages every day from scammers. And scammers always, always, always attempt to open with friendly small talk, friendly conversation, to get you talking so that once it's clear they're trying to sell you something, well, their foot's in the door, and to get rid of them, you'd have to go through the block process. And do you really want to do that? Do you want to cut off someone who might be a valuable resource for you? The answer is usually yes, but to differentiate yourself from these scammers, who typically open up with something like, hey, I saw that your book is out. It looks really neat, and they'll just keep it going to get you hooked until they get to the point where they tell you, hey, if you want to pay this fee, I could help you promote your book and make you some more sales, or I could make an audio version of your book, or I could do whatever it is they're trying to get you to pay for. If you just reach out and you say, hey, I saw your post, your book looks really neat, I'm doing this, set of services for those who are looking for audiobooks. If that's something you'd be interested in, let me know. If not, have a good day, and I look forward to reading the book you've got. That's just standard operating procedure. It's a very simple line you can throw at people, but if you do want to make yourself a little more marketable, whether you're looking to work in traditional books, traditional audio stuff, if you're looking to do something for YouTube, if you're looking to get a hold of an RPG company, make it clear you've actually read the content they're putting out and that you're not just sending this out to everyone who makes a post as like a big just fill in the blank letterhead. So for example, if you were going to reach out to an independent RPG company, and because I am myself and I know my work, let's say you wanted to reach out to me. You said, hey, Army Men looks really cool. I would like to work on this if you're looking to expand it. You drop the title of the book, that's a good start. Show me that you know what you're talking about. Show me that you have interest in this property. And the more I talk about it and the more videos, blogs, etc. I make for it, the easier it is to get a hold of free stuff regarding RPG settings, regarding books, regarding all of the splats and supplements. Mention that you think this country is cool, but it could use some expansion. Throw some ideas out. Mention that you've worked on these other properties for war games and you think that it would be cool to adapt some of the stuff in Army Men to sort of include these additional classes, these additional weapons, these additional fighting styles. Showing that you are interested in a property, that you know what you're talking about, more importantly, that you've actually participated in it, that you've read it, that you've played it, that makes you far more interesting as a candidate if someone is considering opening the door for you and letting you work with them. Especially because so many of us do not have the time, the energy, the money to just waste on every random person that shows up with, their hat out looking for a job. So if you really want to work in RPGs, if you want to work in audio dramas, if you want to work on YouTube, or you want to work with people who are publishing stuff, make it clear you've done your homework and that you're not just randomly throwing your CV at every single person who might vaguely need your services. Tailor your approach to an individual person and make sure that you are approaching them in an appropriate way, at an appropriate place, and with an appropriate manner. You don't come up to someone who is just casually hanging out at the mall and ask to talk business, for example. Much the same way, if someone is currently doing business, don't approach them casually. You want your approach to match the energy of the place you happen to be. You want to be professional. You want to offer all the information that's necessary, and you want to show that you did your homework and you know who you're talking to, you know what it is that you want, and you're making a very specific offer and hoping for a very specific response. If you can do all of those things, that's still no guarantee you will actually get work or that you'll get the position or job you're hoping for. However, it is much more likely that you will be remembered as someone who showed up, who was willing to do the job, who had at least done enough of their background checking to know what was required, and that you seemed to know what you were talking about, and that you weren't just some rando off the street who was doing their best to wriggle their way into your good graces and get in through the door. Because you might very well be completely capable of doing the thing that you're hoping to get the position for. You might be a very talented or very experienced RPG designer. You might be a really good author. You might have one hell of a voice acting talent. But if people don't know who you are, and if your approach is very ham-handed or very confusing or leaves the person you're talking to frustrated or thinking you're a scammer, they're never going to find that out. So it's important to make sure that when you come at something, that you think through your approach and that you customize it to who it is you're reaching out to, and that you make it very clear what you're hoping to achieve. If you do those things, you are far more likely to get what you want. More importantly, you are far more likely to leave a positive impression rather than someone just writing you off as yet one more scammer who was just hoping to get you to pay them to do God only knows what. But with that said, that was basically what I wanted to cover this week, because this is something I've run into so many times, and it doesn't seem to be going away, of whether it's on social media messaging, whether it's in email, whether it's people approaching me when I'm at a signing, a convention. There are so many people who are trying to get into various creative industries, who are trying to become part of products and part of projects, but they don't seem to know how to go about it, and a lot of them are shooting themselves in the foot. So keep all these things in mind if this is something you want to do. And if you have any particular questions about it that I haven't covered, or something that you think needs elaboration, make sure you leave it in the comments below. I will do my best to give you an answer that gets all the details you want, because contrary to popular opinion, I want as many of us to be able to afford to create as possible, because there are so many of us out there with so many great ideas, but we don't always know how to form proper professional networks, and that is really important when it comes to getting our projects off the ground and making sure that all of us get paid at the end of the day. So again, if you have any future topics you'd like me to cover, throw those in the comments. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, all those important things, because our channel is getting closer and closer to our goal as far as watch hours. So please help spread the videos around, watch a few more of this series, if nothing else. And till next time, this is your Tabletop Mercenary, signing off. First and foremost, thank you for staying to the end of this episode of Tabletop Mercenary. If there's a question you have about being an RPG creator, please don't hesitate to put it in the comments below so I can address it in a future episode. If you want to help me keep the lights on and keep this show going, then please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and giving it a share on your own social media pages to help boost the signal. Lastly, if you really enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a tip by buying me a Ko-fi or becoming a Patreon patron at the links in the video description below. You'll find me on both sites under the name The Literary Mercenary.